Hi everyone, now I know this is going to be a music channel, but I thought for my first ranking video I'm going to do the James Bond films. So I'm going to look from worst to best what I consider to be my favourite James Bond films. Okay, so coming in last place, it's Die Another Day, the last Pierce Brosnan film. Oh dear. I know it's got its good points, but it's just the invisible car, really. I think it started off quite good, but for me, from the moment Halle Berry appeared, it just went downhill, and it's the turd in the cannon, basically. I've only got it on DVD because I found it in a pound shop. Gets better, don't worry. Next one, it's A View to a Kill, the last Roger Moore film. I think he was just too old by this stage. I love Roger as James Bond. He was James Bond when I was growing up. But maybe he went on one or two films too long. And yeah, I don't think this was particularly brilliant. It was definitely time for a change by the time he'd done that one. Up next, it's, sorry Roger, I feel bad here, but it's Octopussy. So the one before A View to a Kill. Now, I'm pretty sure this is the first one I went to see at the cinema back in '83. I remember the piss off bit. And there's some good things. I like the opening sequence with the parachutes into the circus, and there's some good bits. I think it's just too long, basically. If they'd have cut half an hour off this film, it could have been quite a good one. But it's up against some stiff competition, so I'm afraid it's near the bottom for me. Next up, we have Quantum of Solace. Now, I don't want to be too harsh about this because I know that there are big problems because there was that writers' strike in Hollywood at the time, and I think it hit this film badly. But certainly when you compare it to the other Daniel Craig films, when you look at big, exciting moments in Bond films, I just don't think this has got as many of them. I quite like the ending, the big sort of expansive villain's lair in the desert, and the whole sort of drinking oil thing was quite fun as drinking oil goes. But generally speaking, not a brilliant Bond film. Next we've got, might upset a few people here, License to Kill. Okay, now I promise you it's going to be quite a while before we get to the other Timothy Dalton film in this ranking. But View to a Kill, you know, it's good. It's got some good sequences. But I think compared to The Living Daylights, I personally, for me, I don't think it's in the same league as that film. And when I think of my sort of favourite Bond moments, I don't really think of this film in particular. Well, it's not a bad film, but well down the list for me. I'm definitely going to upset a few people with this next one. Sorry, Goldeneye. Now, yeah, it's got some great moments. The bungee jumping down the dam was great. Riding the tank through the town, that was fun. But overall, for me, and this is just my opinion, I tend to get a bit bored when I watch this film. Sorry, I know a lot of people love it, and a lot of people that might be to do with the computer game perhaps has influenced a lot of people, but for me, it's not a great one. So it's all going to start getting more positive soon. Tomorrow Never Dies is my next one. Now, I think I definitely prefer this to Goldeneye. I think it's fun. It's been a few years since I watched this one, but generally speaking, when I watch this film, it's good fun, but it's not screaming out to me as a classic Bond film. Continuing my theme of upsetting people, probably going to do the same again here because we're still quite a way down the list in terms of rankings. Thunderball. Now, to be fair, I think in terms of screenplay, this is one of the very best ones in the series. I think it's got some great lines in it. It's got the jetpack scene, which is great. I like the whole sort of health spa thing at the beginning, the shield irrigator bit. It's fun. Sorry for my appalling Sean Connery impression there. But I think some of the underwater scenes just drag on a bit, and for me, again, in terms of memorable scenes, for me, not one of my favourites. Okay, now, it's all been pretty negative so far, but now we've turned a corner. From now on, these are probably going to be more positive comments than negative comments. So the next one for me is The World Is Not Enough. So this is my highest ranked Pierce Brosnan film, and I've got some affection for this one, because although I went to see Octopussy in '83 at the cinema, as I said, so this was what, 16 years later. This is actually the time when I would say I started becoming a Bond fan and collecting the films. It was round about the time when this, and that sort of tied in with when DVDs came out and became popular. I do like this film. I do enjoy this film. So because this is the last time Pierce Brosnan is going to get mentioned, I'll just say my opinion on him. I think he was a good James Bond. I just think in general he wasn't given brilliant films to work with. So maybe not his fault fully, but yeah, World Is Not Enough. I liked that as a film. Next, Diamonds Are Forever. Bonkers, absolutely bonkers film this is. But memorable. Wow, Mr. Kidd and Mr. Wint. Yeah, crazy. Bambi and Thumper. The whole moon buggy thing. It's just a very, very strange film. But it's fun. I think Connery was a little bit bored by this point. I mean, it's certainly not the films that he was making a few years earlier. So yeah, my overriding thoughts on this: fun, but probably the weirdest James Bond film of all. Just going to mention, in case you're wondering, I am not going to be talking about Never Say Never Again, not a Bond film. I am not going to be talking about the old Casino Royale, not a Bond film. I'm talking about the original EON Production films. Okay, just to make that clear. Okay, what we got next? We've got The Man with the Golden Gun. Now, I know this film gets absolutely slated by some people, and I know what, I can sort of understand why. The Sheriff Pepper thing got a bit crazy on this one. Now, 80% of this film is really good. I think it's just some weird stuff that lets it down. The main thing that annoys me with this film is you've got that great car stunt where it goes up the ramp, flips in the air, lands on the ramp on the other side of the river, and it was a fantastic scene. That could have been one of the best car stunts ever. But then what do? They go, and they just make it into a joke. Could have made that scene so much better, guys. But anyway, yeah, a lot of that film, I think, yeah, it's good. It's a good film, good Bond film, and of course got Christopher Lee as Scaramanga with the old extra one. Yeah. What we got next? Okay, we've got Live and Let Die next. Roger Moore's first outing as James Bond. Great theme tune, brilliant. You've got some great scenes here. You've got Roger in his flat unzipping the lady's dress with the magnet. That's fun. The whole New Orleans thing with the New Orleans jazz funeral. You've got all the voodoo stuff. There's some classic Bond elements to this film. So I think it's probably about halfway in my pile. It's a sort of a middling Bond film, but for me, a middling Bond film is a good Bond film, and that's a good Bond film. Okay, what have we got next? I might have put this higher on another day, but today I am going with Spectre, the latest James Bond film. Is it the fourth Daniel Craig film? I think so. Yeah, it's a good film. You've got the Mexican Day of the Dead carnival stuff at the beginning. You've got the return of Blofeld. Sort of that really sort of hooks you into classic Bond. I watched this again recently, probably 2 or 3 months ago, and that was just a fun couple of hours watching that film. So I really like that. That's a good film. Next, we've got, and I think some people would have had this much lower in the list, Moonraker. It gets very, very silly in places. Let's not beat about the bush here. I've got a particular affection for this because back when we had our first video recorder in the 80s, there were 2 James Bond films that we had on video. This was one of them. There's another one still to come later on. So I watched this as a kid more than probably any other Bond film. I think the big thing with this is this has got Roger Moore's best scene as James Bond for me, and that's the centrifuge scene, whereas in the machine the dial gets cranked up and he's... That is a tense scene and really good to watch. You've got Jaws in there as well, of course. It's his second outing for Jaws, and let's not forget one of the best lines to end a James Bond film at the end of this. Good God, what's Bond doing? I think he's attempting re-entry, sir. Genius. I like that film. Next, how many have we got? We've got about 10 left. We've got You Only Live Twice. So yeah, some good classic scenes in that. You've got the fake death scene at the beginning. There's a really good fight in the office, and then does it go up on the rooftop as well, and big sort of wide camera scenes as they do the fighting. That's fun. You've got the whole sort of Japanese culture thing, and then you've got the big Blofeld's lair at the end, haven't you? The big volcano with all the guys sort of parascending down into it. Classic Bond from a classic era of Bond. Of course, Sean Connery went away after that to return with Diamonds Are Forever a bit later. Should he have packed it in completely after that? Maybe not, but I think that was the last one where his heart was really in it. Next we've got classic Roger. It's The Spy Who Loved Me. One of his best, without a doubt. Again, some classic scenes. You've got the old, what was that white cow? Was it a Love to Esprit or something like that? Coming out of the sea, and he winds his window down and hands the guy the fish. All very, very silly 70s stuff, but you've got Stromberg, the baddie. He was a good baddie. You've got, of course, this is was this Jaws? Yeah, this was Jaws' first one, wasn't it? Where you've got Jaws and Bond fighting by the pyramids. Yeah, that was good. Good soundtrack to this as well. Barbara Bach, Mrs. Ringo. She was very good in this, and of course you've got the great opening scene with the Bond skiing. Alan Partridge described it better than I ever could, but with the whole Union Jack opening up, Carly Simon, nobody does it better. Yeah, classic Bond. And we've got On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Okay, so George Lazenby is one and only time as Bond, and all right, he wasn't an actor, he was a model. I thought he did a really good job though for a non-actor, and they certainly gave him a great film to work with. It's just got all the classic elements. Battle at Piz Gloria. You've got Blofeld again. It's that great end of 60s vibe to it. You've got all the tobogganing scenes, and really, really good film. It would have been very interesting to see what had happened if he'd made some more. Or indeed, what could that... You know what? If they remade this film now, that could be really, really interesting. Just a thought. How many have we got left? Let's just have a look. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think, left now, and we are going with The Living Daylights. I love this film. I really do. So Timothy Dalton's first outing as Bond. It's just fun. I just love this film. I love the sort of Eastern European vibe where that they've got to it. I think it's got some good villains. I know Timothy Dalton could be a little bit clunky with some of his delivery when he was, for example, when he was trying to deliver the funny lines. Better make that 2, that kind of thing. But no, I just really, really enjoy this film. And for anybody who's maybe not given it much attention, I would say, go into this one with a real open mind. There's a lot to love in this film. Really good, like that. Now, I think this is my favourite Roger Moore James Bond film, without a doubt. For Your Eyes Only, 1981. You've got that brilliant opening sequence with the helicopter, where he gets the guy in the wheelchair, who may or may not be Mr. Blofeld, and drops him down the chimney. That was funny. That was brilliant. You've got him visiting the grave of his wife Tracy, which was a nice nod to the past there. I know why they did that scene as well at the beginning. Weren't they trying to kill Blofeld off because they knew that Never Say Never Again was being made, with Blofeld as a character. So I'm sure I read that they wanted to sort of try and kill him off to try and do a bit of damage to that film. Clever guys. But this fantastic film. It was really back down to earth after Moonraker. It all got a bit silly going off into space and whatever. They really tried to bring it back to earth, make it a sort of serious spy film. There's not many gadgets in it. I think Topol is really good in this. It's a bit creepy with the young girl ice skater coming on to Roger Moore, who must be 40 years older than her at that point. That's a bit weird, but overall, I love the theme tune as well. Sheena Easton's title track. That is my favourite Roger Moore James Bond film, without a doubt. Okay, last few now. I mentioned that I had 2 on video when I was a kid. One of them was Moonraker, the other one was Dr. No, the first James Bond film from 1962. I believe that this came out the same week as the Beatles released their first single, Love Me Do. So what a week that was. You've got one of the biggest film franchises in history, by far the biggest band in history, and they both, in a way, started in the same week. Oh, interesting, to me anyway. So Dr. No, I love this. It's very sort of understated compared to a lot of the other Bond films as well. There's very little music throughout. Some of the scenes that later on you'd expect there to be music in. You've got a real hard-hearted Bond where he just, I can't remember what the guy's name was. Is it Strangways? Where he just pulls the gun out and just shoots him, bang, when they're sat there talking. If I remember rightly, it's been a while. And the other thing, you get towards the end of this film, and you think, God, there must be ages left yet. We've not reached anything like a climax. You press pause on your DVD and you realise there's like 2.5 minutes left. And it just sort of ends. Very strange, but they didn't know what this series was going to become. If it was intended as a one-off film at that time, it was a great one-off film. So yeah, I really love Dr. No, and I always will. Okay, now we're down to the last 4 here. So we've got, following on from Dr. No appropriately, From Russia with Love. So I think they took a lot of the elements of Dr. No and they just improved on it in this film. You've got great, you've got 3 great baddies. Jeez. There's Kronstein, the chess player. That's a good scene at the beginning where they're having the chess match. You've got Rosa Klebb. She's a psycho with her pointy shoes. She's really good. And then, of course, you've got Grant, Red Grant. What a fight that they have on the train, him and Bond. That's brilliant. And then you've got the whole thing, that sort of like Russian training camp thing near the beginning, where he sort of seeks out a Bond lookalike and kills him in the gardens. And just a great film. You've got a good leading lady there. You've got the characters, Tatiana Romanova, I think, in From Russia with Love. And yeah, that's just a really great 60s Cold War spy film. Brilliant. Top 3 left to go, nearly done. Number 3, Skyfall. I love this film, absolutely love this film. I just think it's got some great elements, and it's just one of those films that It's got a lot of links to Bond's past that we've not really seen on film so much. So things like going up to Scotland and his parents' house. And then you've got a way with this being if you take the whole Daniel Craig era as being a reboot, then the way that this introduces Moneypenny, for example, at the end, I think that's really good. And it's a fantastic finale for Judi Dench. I really like Judi Dench in this series over the years, and this was just a great ending for her, with her really involved in the story, like she hadn't been before. And yeah, they give her a great ending. Really, really love that film. 2 left. So it's not going to come as any surprise to anybody. You're probably thinking, what 2 films are left? But you probably know, if you've got this far in, that the 2 films that are left are Goldfinger and Casino Royale. So which one? Which one's going to be at number 2? At number 2, and you know what, on another day this could be different because I've thought long and hard about this one. But at number 2, and this is close, I'm putting Goldfinger. You know, it's the classic Bond film. It's got more classic Bond moments in it than probably any other film. You've got a fantastic theme song by Shirley Bassey. You've got the whole the game of golf. I just love that game of golf. It's so tense between Auric Goldfinger and James Bond. You've got Oddjob. What a great villain he was, with his hat, and he could just destroy things with his hat. How cool was that? Pussy Galore, played by Honor Blackman. She was a great addition to this film. You've got the laser beam scene. Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Brilliant. It's just if you had to choose one James Bond film to show people, to say this is what James Bond is, I think you'd probably choose this one. Fantastic film. Brilliant. But it was my number 2. It's a tight call, but my number 1 James Bond film is Daniel Craig's first James Bond film, Casino Royale. Do you know what? It's the only James Bond film, maybe exception of Goldfinger, that I would even consider putting in my top 10 films of all time. I think Daniel Craig was superb in this. I know it can be a bit moody for some, but I just think he was brilliant at rebooting the series. After how stupid it had got with Pierce Brosnan towards the end with Die Another Day, I think the Bond producers, they had to do something because they'd been sort of blown away by the Jason Bourne films and things that was going on with let's say Jack Bauer in 24. Notice that the Americans always make their heroes have the initials JB, like James Bond. I think that's deliberate, but they had to do something anyway to bring them into this century. Otherwise, I think the Bond series would have died. And this is just a phenomenal film. That whole the stunts at the beginning with the sort of parkour, free running scenes. You've got the card game with Le Chiffre, brilliant. The torture scene, oh my god, I mean, if you don't wince when you see that torture scene, there is something wrong with you. The great sort of love story with him and Vesper. It's one of those films where you think it goes on for about 40 minutes longer than it should do, but then you see how that all ties in at the end with where you find out that she's actually betrayed him. And with the is it Mr. White at the end, where Bond sort of shoots him in the legs and he delivers his line, the James Bond bit right at the end. It feels like it might be going on too long, but you just think, oh, actually, that was all brilliant, that extra that they put in there. I think it's just a fantastic film. It's my number 1. I'd love it if something else comes along in future and beats it to number 1. But for now, that is. And that, everybody, is my Bond films worst to best ranking. Hope you enjoyed it. Give us some comments if you've got any. You probably, even if you just think I've completely and utterly messed this up and you hate everything about my rankings, let me know. I'm a big boy. I can take it. Cheers then. Bye bye.